Paul, welcome, and thank you so much for making the time to be with us today and share your journey on cloud transformation at Marsh McLennan. I wanted to kick off by asking you about your cloud transformation journey and what is your strategy around it?
Yeah, for sure. It's a pleasure to be here. So we are, I think, like a lot of companies, trying to make sure that we're setting up our IT infrastructure in a way that's going to give us the maximum agility in the long run. Manage our costs in the near term, but also just give us the flexibility to evolve and adapt as our business needs evolve. And we've been thinking for a while about when to make the move and when to sort of really commit to a cloud-first strategy. So the sort of critical point was finding the moment where we could adopt an approach which was primarily lift and shift, make the economics work, and then push back the modernization and the optimization phase into afterwards and tackle that at our leisure.
How did your overall cloud-first strategy align with the business goals? Like, what were you seeking to achieve as a business and your overall strategy as a business? And then how did you connect those dots?
Yeah, so we've been on a journey of really trying to make sure that the technology organization is set up to move at the speed the business wants to move. And I think a lot of companies have struggled with that historically because so much of what you want to do is driven by the speed the market around you moves. And applications and technology infrastructure are inherently quite sticky. And so it's often very difficult, especially with the way we've built applications and run data centers in the past, to be able to move at the same speed that the business would like to. So IT's often ended up being the rate limiting step on so many things. We wanted to break out of that. We knew we needed to. And that's partly about how we think about how we access and pull infrastructure together. But it's also about architecturally how we build applications. It's about how we streamline and simplify the way that we work internally. It's about the skills that we build throughout the organization. All of those things come together to try and make us a more agile and responsive organization.
One of the things we talk a lot about is the sort of top-down commitment and ability to move at pace and speed. Talk to me a little bit about your timelines and how are you thinking about actually accelerating on that, and how do you feel about where you are?
We have a number of strategic data centers around the world that we're working through phased approach, both to manage the amount of change that has to happen at any point in time, but also to align with lease expiries and manage the financial aspects of this as well. So we're one down. We're getting close to the end of the second, then we move on to the third, and the fourth is the big one at the end. But the program has been built to make sure that we're learning as we go, and in particular that we're increasing the level of automation that we have as we go, so that when we get to the big beast at the end, we have a slicker, more finely tuned process. Our data is in better condition. The amount of the work that can be done in an automated fashion has increased. And that builds more confidence to do it.
So how is the AI-enabled technology actually helping you on this automation journey that you're talking about, both maybe on the migration, but also as I'm sure you're already starting to think about modernization?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the way that AI is going to play in almost everything we do is one of the big questions of the moment. And it's an area we've been spending a lot of time on, trying to make sure that our people are upskilled, that we have the capabilities to help them be as productive as they can be. I think the place where it's going to start to get really interesting is post-migration, because we know that there's an optimization and a modernization phase after that that's going to be pretty valuable. Where we see AI playing as an accelerator of those things, we think it may actually fundamentally change the business cases. And obviously that's something we're working closely with AWS on, trying to understand what the potential there is, try and find some projects which are leading edge projects that can show us the pathway that we can then scale later as we get through the rest of the migration.
Yeah, and by the way, we're also, leveraging this quite a lot now as well, because I think you're right. I think the ability to really refactor now in a completely different way is phenomenal. I mean, a lot of software companies are rewriting their platforms on the basis of this technology. Now, you mentioned AWS. Thank you so much. I mean, we're just super delighted to be working with you on this. I'd love to understand, what was the primary reasons that you decide to select us as your preferred cloud provider?
Yeah, so we ran through, as you would imagine, for something of this scale and frankly importance to us, a pretty thorough process of evaluating a number of different options. What ultimately made the difference was when our team sat down with the representatives of all the different teams, they came away with a fundamentally different level of confidence in the people that they had met about their ability to get us there. You enter these things with a certain amount of trepidation, and a huge part of it is, do these look like the people who are going to get through this journey with us and are going to bring us the expertise we need? And that was the difference maker. And I think that's been proven to be true as we've gone through this journey. We've had fantastic support from the team that's been around us.
Now, look, you're a 150-year-old company. How do you balance maintaining and upholding stability, which is super critical, I'm sure, but at the same time changing the business and innovating at scale?
Well, you don't get to be 150 years old without dealing with a fair amount of change along the way.
True.
And so there is intrinsic in that history is the ability to flex and adapt to a world that's changing around us. From my perspective, when I think about particularly the technology side of things, the key thing is to be responsive and flexible. We're trying to make sure that the path to create an idea and get that idea out somewhere is as short as possible. So those sorts of things, I think, are important parts of keeping us able to respond to a world that's around us. And Marsh McLennan is an organization that is focused on the management of risk, and managing and thinking about risk is intrinsic to how we think about things. Management of people and the enablement of people is critical to how the technology organization thinks of what it's here to do in support of the business, and strategy, thinking in the long run about how those capabilities are going to underpin how the business evolves as a whole.
How are you thinking about evolving skills of the teams here, the new talent you bring in, as you embark on your next phase?
Fundamentally, at our heart, we're a people business. And so the capabilities of our people and the way we develop them are just absolutely core to our success. If I think about the journey we're on with our move to the cloud, that's a very significant transition of people's skills. It requires a different way of thinking about technology. It requires unlearning certain habits. And we've obviously been working with the AWS team to give people the capabilities and the training that they need to do that. We've built our cloud university together. We're using a skills builder platform as part of how we're making sure that there is no excuse, there's no reason that people shouldn't be able to join us on that journey. And then on the AI side, you're right, the technology is in some ways quite straightforward, but getting people to really use it at scale and really bring it into how they do their work every day is a journey. And the approach that we've taken to that is get it out there in low-risk ways and get the usage. And then we have an AI academy that we've built, which is about teaching people how to develop more and more advanced capabilities.
You've been a huge first mover on this, on the generative AI transformation and making this technology available to your teams, and with LenAI in particular. How are you thinking actually about scaling this across 90,000 employees?
So the LenAI tool, we pushed out to everyone in the firm 18 months ago now. So it's very long established, and it's very much a part of how a lot of people do their work every day. I think we run at 600,000 queries a week, so about 30 million a year. As I say, we've been building new capabilities constantly as part of that platform.
Now, as you think about the application of AI across your various business units, what are one or two areas that you believe could be quite transformational in terms of either productivity or growth or customer experience?
Well, I think we're fairly far along this journey, so there are things that are already being massively impactful. I think the general employee assistant use case is the foundational and easiest one to get after. And as I say, for us, we have our LenAI tool. We also have what we call Len 365 embedded in our Office suite that brings those capabilities into the heart of where people are working every day.
Advice for other companies and businesses as they either enter the space or think about, scaling from what you've learned and how they should think about this?
The need to embrace AI is certainly one of them. The need for agility is another. If you're a global company, the need to be able to work globally with ease and with no friction is another. I think a lot of the time the destination is clear, and the question is, how do you plot a path that is the right one? And my approach to this, which may not be right for everyone, but my approach to this has been to try and retain as many strategic levers as possible to provide the capabilities to move at the speed the business needs to be able to move at. And so that balancing act of we know where we need to go, but how do we get there in a way that isn't disruptive, is additive, allows us to be responsive, I think is something that's well worth thinking about.
Paul, I guess one last question. A call to action for people listening in this world of not only cloud first, but AI first?
As I say, you know what the future is. It's fairly obvious, and you need to skate to where it is. Otherwise, it's the worst thing in the world, I think, to be running a technology organization that is behind the curve and where everyone is trying to drag you to a place that your competitors are getting to, or it's clear you should have been at before. I think one of the things that I feel most glad about recently is taking a bet on AI before I was asked about it, because it was clear it was coming. And being slightly ahead of everyone is a very much nicer place to be than being slightly behind all of your clients and customers.
Speed is the leadership choice. Thank you, Paul. It was wonderful talking to you.
You too. Thank you.